All right, everybody, let's take a look at drawing number two. Drawing number two is going to share some very similar tools to what we used in drawing one. However, there are some new concepts and there's some new tips and tricks that you're going to want to need and use for this one. Um, First things first, let's take a look at some of our measurements here. Our 129, that's the length from the center of this whole shape to the center of this shape. 70 is the length from end to end. 10 total length from this line to this line, and 20 is the total length from this edge to this edge. Those are going to be very important, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. This fillet over here, there's 4 of them. They're a radius of 20, and then your overall circles. I took a screenshot of that and I posted it over here in my drawing window so that I don't have to switch back and forth. I can just zoom in and out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my object over here. So a radius of 30 circle. Come down here, radius 30, enter. I'm going to move that a little bit closer. There you go. That way I'm not having to zoom and pan as much. All right, so there's my radius of 30 circle. I'm 129 over to the next one. So in order to do this, I'm going to just take a line. I'm going to click on my center. I'm going to come over 129. And this point here is the center of this circle. So I'll click, I'll do a radius of 20. That gives me my 2 circles, okay? I'm going to come back to the objects that are in the inside here in a little bit. I want to work on the middle part here. So if we look at our example, and it tells us that this is 10 in total. I currently have a line going all the way down the center, right? That's this line. So if I know that this is a total of 10, could we assume that from the center it's 5 this way and 5 that way? If we assume that, we could use one of the tools we used last drawing, which is our offset tool. I'll come in here, I'll specify my offset distance as 5, which is half of my total. I'm going to select this line, go up and down, and then it'll give me my total width there. All right. I also will want to find the center from here to here. All right. Now I can't just pick and say, oh, well, that's the center of my line there, because that's the center of my overall line from the center of this to the center of that. And that really doesn't help me with anything. But if I trim, let me do that again. If I trim this, now I'm left with a line that truly I could say, okay, well, the center of between here to here is there. The reason I did this, I want to find where these end caps are. We know it's a total of 70 in width. From the center out, half of 70, which is 35, would be where one of these things are. So let's find that. I'm going to go and draw a line. I like doing this. I like going up a little bit so I'm off my line. I'll come over 35, and then I'm going to come down. The reason I did all that is now I know my intersection right there. And remember, that is the edge of the circle, not the center. So how do we figure out what that circle size is going to be? Well, think about this. If it's from here to here is 10, that would be like the diameter of a circle. Well, could we say that here's the 12 o'clock position of a circle, there's the 6 o'clock position of the circle, and total is 10 diameter? You can. So what I'll do is I'll come back over here to my drawing. I'm going to use a different circle drawing tool. I'm going to do a 2-point circle. A 2-point circle is really good if you have the diameter and you have one of the points where it starts or ends. What I'll do is I'll specify this first point, which is there, and then I'll start coming this way. And we said it's a 10 diameter, so I'll type 10. And when I hit enter, it should lock perfectly in. Now I'm going to delete a bunch of this stuff that I don't need. I'm not going to trim it. I'm going to actually delete it. And I am going to trim this stuff to clean this up a little bit. So there's the one edge of my little widget. And then from there, I'm even going to delete this. From here, I want to go the total length the other way, which is 70. So I'll click from there. I'll come down 70. That gives me my other edge. I'll then go with my circle tool again, come this way 10, and then trim the rest of this out that I don't need. All right, that should leave me with that center section completed as I want. I'll get rid of this and get rid of that. And there we go. So I now have the center of that wrench there. I don't have the outer part, the grip. In order to do that, I'm going to yet again give myself a center line because I want to use that offset tool like we just did. But this time, instead of it being 10 total, it's 20 total. So when I offset my line, I'll offset it by 10. So offset distance is 10, select my line, I'm going to get rid of the middle one because I don't need that right now. And here are these lines. Now to connect this together, we're going to use a tool we haven't used before. This is the fillet tool. It is right here. So the fillet tool, the way this works, I'm going to select the tool. It's going to ask me to, in my command bar, it'll say select the first object. I don't want to do that. I want to specify what the radius is. Here's what happens if you don't. If I just click and click, it fails. If I go into my fillet tool and I know what my radius is, which somehow it's not in my drawing here. Here it is, radius of 20. So I've clicked the fillet tool. When I'm here, I'm going to hit R enter, which means I want to specify the radius. So fillet tool, R enter, and then it asks me, what's the radius? I'm going to type in 20, enter, and then it'll say select the first object, which I will, select the second object, I will, and it works. This is one of those tools that if we're going to repeat the exact same action, hit the space bar, it reactivates it, and it also remembers what the dimensions were, so I don't have to retype that stuff in. Okay, so there is that. Okay, good to go. Our next part is the hexagons here in the inside. Now, in order to do this, we are going to want to find our hexagon tool, and we're going to want to draw a circumscribed or a inscribed shape. All right, and I'm going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to pick this up in video too, because I want to display a few more of my tools and move something around.